The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sean, and I want to welcome you all to the Stamps.com online webinar. Today, I'm going to be providing a general overview of the features and benefits provided by Stamps.com, and then we'll be getting into how to actually use the service. I'd like to start by talking about what we do here at Stamps.com. Our service enables you to print postage using your own computer and your existing printer. You can use our website to calculate exact postage for your domestic or international mailing to anywhere in the world, and then print that postage out right there on the spot. You then affix that postage to your mail piece, and you can drop it right into a mailbox or even have the Usps come and pick it up for you for free. Our service is available for use 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which means that you never have to go to the post office again. To that end, we also offer the same free supplies you can get at the post office. They're available in our online store, and we offer them for free as well, so they have literally no cost. You don't even need to pay for shipping. You also receive discounts with priority and express mail when using Stamps.com that you can't get when using a postage meter or even going to the post office itself. In addition, we also offer discounted package insurance and free delivery confirmation on priority mail packages. Finally, I'd like to mention that Stamps.com gives you access to the same address matching service employed by the USPS. What this means for you is that you should never again have mail returned due to an issue with the address. Now, before we get into how to actually use the Stamps.com online service, I'd like to point out that while you are all able to hear me, I cannot hear you. And that being said, if you look over to the right-hand side of your screen, there should be an area where you can type in any questions that you might have, and I'd strongly encourage you to feel free to do so. While I will not be able to answer these questions during the webinar itself, I will be setting aside some time afterwards in order to address any questions that you might have. I do, however, ask that if you have any questions pertaining specifically to your account or your personal mailing needs, that you go ahead and call our customer care team for personalized assistance. And I'll be covering how they can be reached in just a moment. So what we're looking at on the screen here is the Stamps.com online home screen. You can get here by going to www.stamps.com and logging in with your username and password. This will always be the first screen that you see when you log in. I'd also like to point out here that what we're looking at is different from the downloadable Stamps.com software. If you were looking for information on the software as opposed to our online service, you can go to www.stamps.com/webinar. Look for the New Customer webinar, and click on the Watch button to watch a pre-recorded webinar about using that software now. I'll also be hosting this New Customer webinar every other Wednesday, and the next one is coming up next week on June 15th. So again, here we are on the Stamps.com home screen. And while we're here, I'd like to start by talking about some of the things that we're looking at, specifically a few very important items. Most important, in the lower right-hand corner of the screen here, we have the Contact Stamps.com section. This provides you a clickable email link and a phone number for reaching our customer and technical support. Our customer support via phone is available Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And our email support is available also 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Over on the lower left-hand corner of the screen, we have the Quick Tools section. And there are two important items I'd like to point out here. The first link under Quick Tools is a Learning Center. And what this is a series of video manuals covering the use of Stamps.com. It's very similar to what we're doing right now, but it's broken into smaller pre-recorded segments. And then right below the Learning Center, you have the online help link. This is a searchable help guide that covers just about anything you could ever want to know about Stamps.com or the related USPS regulations. It's a really wonderful place to find specific information that you're looking for. We also, in the middle here, have the News and Notes section. Posts here include important USPS news and updates, as well as news and tips from Stamps.com itself. Also of importance, in the upper right-hand corner of the home screen, we can go ahead and see the postage balance on the account listed here. If you click on the underlined dollar amount for your account, that will open up the Buy Postage window, and this will enable you to add more postage to your account. All you do is select the amount of postage that you'd like to buy, or you can go ahead and type in a specific amount as well. And then you click on the Purchase button there, and that postage is typically instantly credited to your account. You can also click on the Edit Payment Method button here to go ahead and change the credit card associated with your account. It's worth noting that the postage you purchase here is USPS postage. Now, we don't take a cut or add on any fee here. We're just an intermediary between you and the USPS itself. Now, above the postage balance, we have a few other links here. First, we have the Home link in the left-hand area, and this will take you right back to the screen that we're on now. Just to the right of Home, we have the User Preferences link. This provides a number of configurable options and preferences, and we will be coming back to this a little bit later on in the webinar. We also have the Help link here. That provides another link to our searchable help guide. It's just the same as the online help link under Quick Tools. And then finally, we have Sign Out, which would sign you out of your account and take you back to the Stamps.com login screen. That's an alternative to just closing down your browser window. Now, what I consider really the most important on this screen would be this blue bar that's running left to right across the top here. This is our navigation bar, and it contains the most important links to using the Stamps.com online service. I really think of it as the hub of the service. Of the 5 categories here, I'd like to go ahead and start with certainly the most important, which would be print postage. So let's go ahead and click on Print Postage now. Now, this print postage screen, this is where we'd go to actually print out any of the stamps, labels, or other postage that we'd be producing from the Stamps.com online service. And while we're here, I'd like to briefly take a moment to address this beta tag here in the upper left-hand corner. While the Stamps.com online service is technically in its beta testing stage, everything I'm able to do with the service has been extremely well tested. This beta label is really just indicative of the fact that there are a few features that are not currently usable here, as they're still being tested and improved internally. But to anything that you can see me do on the webinar today, you're absolutely able to do and is extremely well tested. So printing postage with Stamps.com online. This screen here enables us to print any of the types of postage that you'd want to produce from the service here. And the way it's set up is like a form designed to be completed starting from the top and then moving down the screen. As we input our information starting from the top, the screen below is going to change to reflect your choices. So the idea here is that as you complete the form from top to bottom, you won't have to enter any redundant or unnecessary information. You'll only ever be asked to enter in the information that is specific to what you're printing out. Another great feature of this screen is that if I hover my mouse over just about any of the sections or options available to me, I'm shown a pop-up with detailed information on that topic. For example, I'm doing this right now with mail piece, and I'm seeing a pop-up here defining the term and telling me the USPS dimensional requirements and restrictions for the various mail pieces. This also works for mail classes. For example, the first class mail pop-up here explains the 13-ounce weight limitation that's specific to that class. So what I'd like to do is run through an example of printing postage. First, let's say I wanted to print out a few stamps for some letters. So starting from the top of the form here, the first thing I'll need to do is specify the mail piece that I'm using. We can see that this is currently set to packages, and I'll want to go ahead and change that, which I can do by clicking on the menu. In doing so, I have a full list of the options available here. And in this case, I am mailing some letters, so I'll go ahead and choose that now. And watch what happens below when I make that selection. You'll notice the screen below changed. Most significantly, I'm no longer being asked about the recipient address below, because right now the letter selection has defaulted to printing onto NetStamps here. Since the recipient address is only relevant to shipping labels, that's not information I'm being asked to enter now. And again, it's very important to work from the top to the bottom of the screen in order to take advantage of this feature, as it's a really big time saver. So now, having entered my mail piece of letters, the next thing down the screen is to go ahead and enter in the weight of the item. In this case, it's defaulting to 1 ounce, but I'll go ahead and confirm this by placing my envelope on my digital scale and clicking on the Read Digital Scale button here. I could also go ahead and check this auto box. And what this would do is have the scale automatically read the weight of whatever is on it and then transmit that information directly into the Stamps.com online service. If I did not have a digital scale, I could also just go ahead and manually enter the weight by clicking on the drop-down menus here. So with my correct weight of 1 ounce entered, the next step is for me to specify what I'm printing my postage on. In this case, I'm already set to print on NetStamps by default. Now, all of our customers should be receiving a welcome kit that includes sheets of these NetStamps labels. Some of you should have already received this, but if you just recently signed up, you should keep an eye out for the welcome kit. It comes in a big blue and white envelope and has a lot of very useful items in it. So now, by default, Stamps.com does not know what type of NetStamp sheet I'm using, as there are a number of different kinds. So what we need to do is enter in the serial number that appears in the upper right-hand corner of the label sheet. So I'll just go ahead and type in the serial number for my original NetStamp labels here. And now next, I'm being asked if I want to specify the postage amount or have it calculated here. So the difference between these two options, if I knew the exact amount of postage I needed already, I could go ahead and choose Specify Postage Amount, which would allow me to go ahead and just type that amount in. In this case, though, I'm just not 100% sure about it, so I'm happy leaving Stamps.com set to calculate the postage amount. And then moving down, we can see that I can set my return address here under Mail From. If I needed to make any changes here, for example, if I were printing out from a different location than I typically would, I definitely want to go ahead and make that change here by clicking on this open link and then editing my address. It's very important to be sure that your mail from address is indicative of the location that you're printing from, as there can be issues with the USPS if you are mailing from a different zip code than the service believes that you are. And then also here I can change the country that I'm mailing to. In this case, these are domestic mailing, so I'll go ahead and leave that to the default of United States. And then below there, I'm being asked about the service types or the mail classes here. So here I can see the price of each service option over on the right-hand side of the screen. And one thing to note here is that we can see that there's a price range rather than a fixed amount being displayed for both priority and express mail. The reason for this is that their cost is zone-based, which means that the price varies based on your distance to the recipient. However, if I were to select, for instance, priority mail, I'd then be asked to enter in the destination zip code for my recipient. And then once I were to do that, I would be given an exact price amount here. In this case, however, I'm going to be sending these by first-class mail, so I'll go ahead and choose that mail class now. And then moving down the screen again, we have the additional options section. And first here we have the Special Services Select button. And by clicking on this button, I am able to see a list of the special services available to me. One thing that's great about this feature is that it will only show you services that are usable for the mail piece and mail class selections you made higher up in the form. So I'm only being shown additional options or special services relevant to a first-class letter right now. So let's say I wanted to send this letter via certified mail. I could go ahead and click on this checkbox, and that will update the additional total cost here at the bottom. Another thing it's doing is letting me know that the USPS Form 3800 is required for certified mail. And I can click on that form link to see a picture of the form and an explanation of where to get it. And again, that could be picked up either from the local post office or from the Stamps.com store for free. it is essential that this form be included if I were sending this out via certified mail. If I omitted the form, the USPS would have no idea that I was intending to mail this via certified mail, and I'd effectively be sending the $2.85 that it costs to do the certified mail. That would go to waste. So it's very, very important to include the forms here. Now, in my particular case, I don't really want any of the special services right now, so I'll just go ahead and click on the Cancel button. And now, below Special Services, in additional options, we have the reference number area. Now, this reference number option will associate whatever I type in here. It could be a number or text with this particular print job. So in this case, I'll go ahead and type in personal. And later, you're able to search through your print history by reference number. So for instance, after I print this out, I could search in my print history for the term personal, and I would find this and any other items that I printed with that reference number. And below reference number, we have cost codes. Now, cost codes are very similar to reference numbers, but these are predefined categories. That's really the only difference here. You're also able to search your print history by the cost code, and this just adds another available layer of organization to your printouts. Now, finally, below the additional options, we have the last section here, print options. This has a preview picture here that shows us where on the label sheet I'll begin printing. Stamps.com keeps track of which labels you've already used based on the serial number for the page. But if you need to, you can always change the starting label position by clicking on whichever label you'd like to start out printing from. The print quantity can also be changed on this screen here just by changing this menu here at the bottom. You can just click on it to select whatever quantity you'd like, or you can click on the Print All box to have it use all available remaining labels. In this case, I only need 3 stamps here, so I'll go ahead and choose a quantity of 3. And now we are ready to print. Before I do any prints, however, there are 2 things I like to verify here. First, I'm always careful to double check my total cost, which is displayed here in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, just to make sure I haven't made any mistakes, like accidentally choosing priority mail instead of first class. Also, while the total cost looks good, I haven't used this particular printer in a little while. So before I print out real postage, I'm going to go ahead and print a sample onto a plain sheet of paper just to make sure it's going to work. These samples cost absolutely nothing. They print out voided examples of the postage you're trying to print. And again, you should always print samples onto plain paper, as there's no reason to waste an actual label for a sample here. So to print that sample, I'll go ahead and click on this gray Print Sample button now. And that should then open up the print window. Oh, it looks like it forgot my weight here. I believe that went away after I changed the mail class here. So now if I go ahead and click on Print Sample, it should properly bring open the print window, and there we go. So on this screen here, I'm able to choose any of the printers I have available to print onto. Now in this case, I already like the Office printer here, so I'll go ahead and click on the Print button to have it go ahead and produce my sample. And it will take just a moment to go ahead and send this document over to the printer. So here, if all goes well, I'm going to feel comfortable printing out my real postage onto my actual labels. And sure enough, my sample did print out just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and load that label sheet into the printer now. And then we'll go ahead and print out actual postage here, which is really the same process, except we'll be using the blue Print Postage button to do that. And when I click on it, one noticeable difference here is that the print screen, when you're printing postage, will let you know the exact amount that you're going to be charged for this printout. And again, that looks good, so we'll go ahead and print that out now. So one thing that is very noteworthy here, after we print out, the screen will go ahead and take us back to the top here. And now what's new is this yellow ribbon here letting us know that if there were problems with our last print, we can reprint now, which we can do just by clicking on this link here. So where this would be handy is, let's say, for instance, my label sheet jammed on that print. After clearing up that paper jam, I'd go ahead and click on the Reprint Now link, and that would open up the Certify Reprint window. This window just explains that the reprint that is going to reprint the item I just printed, and I will not be charged for it. And also that I'll need to click on this box here to certify to the USPS that my previously printed postage was never used. Then I can just click on the Continue button to bring up the print window again. Now in this case, I don't need to do a reprint because my first print came out fine, so I'll just go ahead and hit Cancel here. but if I needed to, I could just click on print and it would print out just as it did before. So now that we've covered printing out a stamp, I'd like to cover how we can print out something different, like let's say printing out a domestic shipping label. So to do that, we'll start again from the very top of the screen here. And again, the first item that we'll want to look at is the mail piece selection. We do have a wide variety of mail pieces available to us, including flat rate boxes and envelopes and regional rate boxes as well. And in this case, I do have a priority mail small flat rate box that I need postage for. So I'll go ahead and choose the USPS priority mail or flat rate regional rate boxes here. And again, notice that after I entered that selection here, I'm not being asked anymore to enter in dimensions or even the weight in this case, due to the fact that these boxes use flat rate pricing. So this time I am going to print out on a proper shipping label here rather than using a NetStamp. So I want to change my selection of what postage what I'm printing my postage on over to plain paper in this case. And now with my plain paper shipping label selected, unlike when we were printing with NetStamps, I will need to go ahead and enter in a delivery address here. And I already had an address copied, so I'll just go ahead and paste that in now. And now right below the address, we can see that I can also choose to have, well, there's this email recipient option here. And what this is you can opt to have a shipment notification email automatically sent to your recipient right when you print out your postage here. So if I were to click on this checkbox and type in an email address, once I print out the postage, the recipient would receive a customizable email that includes a clickable link that the recipient would be able to use to view the current tracking information for that package. That's a very, very popular feature. And now under service types here, we can see that I'm being shown only services that pertain to the flat or regional rate boxes here. In this case, I will have selected the Priority Mail small flat rate box. And it's worth noting here that when I do, I'm being shown this warning at the bottom that this flat rate box has a maximum weight limit of 70 pounds. So Stamps.com is very diligent about making sure that you don't have an opportunity to violate any of the USPS restrictions or regulations for these various mail classes. Now, having selected my service type, I want to move down to additional options. And we can see that there are a few more options than we had previously when we were printing out our stamps for the labels. Most significantly, we can change our tracking options. Now, in this case, we're already set up for the free delivery confirmation that you get with Priority Mail. But if we needed to, we could go ahead and switch that over to signature confirmation by selecting that in this menu here. Now, in this case, the delivery confirmation suits my needs just fine, so I'll go ahead and go back to delivery confirmation. And then right below our tracking options, we also have the option to add insurance to the package. And we have the option for both USPS and Stamps.com issued insurance here. Aside from the cost, there really is not a whole lot of difference between the two insurance providers here, although certainly I'll note that the Stamps.com insurance is less expensive than the USPS insurance. And then below insurance, we have the same select button for special services that we had with our letters here. And if I go ahead and click on that now, I can see that those options have changed. Since I'm not sending a letter and instead I'm sending out a shipping label, I'm only being shown special service options that would be relevant to the shipping label here. So specifically, certified mail and return receipt have been replaced by return receipt for merchandise. Again, I don't want to set any of these additional options here, so I'll go ahead and close that down. And just as we had before with letters, I also have the option of typing in a reference number or selecting a cost code here. We've already covered those, so we can just go ahead and leave those as is. Now, this last additional option is a very important one, the mailing date option here at the bottom. Unlike when we were printing out with NetStamp labels, shipping labels, or anything else that we're able to print out that is not a NetStamp is going to have a mailing date associated with it. This date here is the day that this label is going to have to enter the mail stream. So I want to be sure that this is set to the day I plan on sending the item. If I miss the date, I'd have to go ahead and either print out a correction on the label or go ahead and have a refund issued and generate a new label. So it's always good to be sure that you get the mailing date right the first time. And in this case, I know I'm not going to have enough time to get out to the post office today, so I'll want to go ahead and set the mailing date to tomorrow so that I can get it sent in tomorrow morning. So we can click on the mailing date selection in order to do that. And it's worth noting here that I'm being shown dates up to a week ahead, but Sundays and USPS holidays will be automatically excluded from this list, and you can see that it jumps right from Saturday to Monday here. In this case, Friday's just fine, so I'll go ahead and choose that date here. Now finally, under print options, the only real option we have available here would be the starting label position, which we can change just like we did with NetStamps by clicking on the desired start label location. And now that said, we can just go ahead and get to printing this label out here. And that's done in the same way by clicking on the blue Print Postage button. And now this is a little bit of a different process than when we were printing out the stamps for the letters here. When we're printing out this shipping label, it's letting me know that the $5 cost of this label is going to be deducted from my postage balance right now. And then I will have to be sure to print out on the next screen in order to get my label. So knowing that here, we can go ahead and get that label printed out now. And just as when we printed out the NetStamps for the letters, again, we can see that it's taking me up to the top of the screen here, and there's that yellow ribbon offering for me to reprint that label again. So we've covered printing out a letter and a domestic shipping label. Now, the last example I'd like to cover here would be to go through the process for printing out an international shipping label, as that is nicely different. So for this example, I have a 1-pound parcel that I need to get shipped out to Canada. My parcel is a box, but is not flat rate. So for the mail piece here, I'll just be choosing the more generic selection of packages. And now having done that, I'll be asked to enter in both the weight and the dimensions here. So I'll just go ahead and manually enter in that weight of 1 pound. And now my box is a cubic foot, so I'll go ahead and enter in those dimensions here. It's also worth noting that if this package were non-rectangular, for example, if it were spherical or a tube, you could click this box here on the right to have that factored into the pricing appropriately. And now again, for printing postage on, I'll be using plain paper again, as I do want a shipping label, so we'll just go ahead and leave that as is. And now under addresses here, I'll want to change the mail to drop-down menu to reflect that I'm sending this item to Canada. And when I do, the address field is going to change. So now here it's changed to a much more specific form. And we can notice also that we need to, or rather, there are 2 things that are noteworthy about this particular form. One, unlike with domestic labelings, all the domestic addresses that you enter in, those are going to be checked by the address matching service used by the U.S. Postal Service. And what that does is confirm that the address you're sending your item to does exist in the USPS database, that it is a real address. In this case, with an international mailing, the USPS does not keep a good database of international addresses. There are just too many for it to factor in. So any address you enter in here, you want to be sure to double check on your end before actually printing out, as the matching service will not be available to confirm that for you. Okie doke. And then this, of course, is just generic testing information here. But the last thing that we do need to enter in with an international mailing, unlike with a domestic, is the USPS requires that a phone number be entered in for your package here. Now, I know in my case, I very seldom actually have the phone number for my recipient. And so what I do, which is absolutely okay by the USPS, is to just go ahead and enter in my own phone number here. But we do have to have a phone number required. And again, just as with the domestic mailing, we do have the option to email our recipient with that shipment notification email. Again, I'll just go ahead and leave that as is. Now, for the service types, we can see that those all have changed to international mailings here. The cost is a big consideration for me, so I'm just going to go ahead and choose the first class international mail class, as it's much cheaper than the Priority or Express. And again, this is a really great feature of Stamps.com, is this easy side-by-side comparison of pricing here. Now, having chosen my service type, we'll go ahead and take a look at additional options. And I can see that no special services are available for for international packages here. So the only additional options we have available would be the same reference number and cost code that we have with any mailing, and then also the mailing date here. And also, very helpfully, we can see that Stamps.com remembers that I changed the mailing date for my previous package over to tomorrow, so it's kept that as is, defaulting to tomorrow as the mailing date. And now, finally, because this is an international package, I will need to complete the customs forms. And fortunately, I'm able to print that out right with the label, so I don't need any special forms outside of Stamps.com. I can just fill in the information right here, and that will be incorporated into the shipping label I'm printing out today. So I'm sending a gift out to a friend here. So for this contents section, we'll just go ahead and select that as gift. And then for more info, I'll just type in book. Now the quantity here is fine at 1, so I'll just go ahead and enter in a description of wrapped book. And then finally, we'll enter in the weight of this item, which is 14 ounces. The package itself is 1 pound, but the book is just 14, and the other 2 ounces would be the packaging itself. And then finally, I'll just need to cover an estimated value of the item. That's about $20. So we'll just go ahead and enter that in here. And that's really all there is to completing customs forms. Just a basic description, entering in the quantity of the pound, and then an estimated value, and I'm all done. So now we're ready to print. And unfortunately, as you can see here, we don't have a preview picture of the label, and I can't also change its position on my page of the paper. However, we can print out a sample just to be sure that it is going to look good. And in this case, I'm confident it's going to print out just fine. So I'll go ahead and click on the Print Postage button. And now here, we can see that I was unable to print because I forgot to check this box in the lower left-hand corner agreeing to the USPS Privacy Act statement and their restrictions and prohibitions. I always forget to check this box, and Stamps.com always very helpfully reminds me I need to check this item here. So I'll just go ahead and check that out now, and go ahead and click on Print Postage again. There we go. And again, I'm being warned that I'll have the cost of the postage deducted out right now. It's the same warning that we had with the domestic mailing, so I'll just go ahead and hit Continue. And now here, this screen is slightly different. Another peculiarity with the international mailings, but we'll go ahead and just get that printed out to the printer now. And that's all there is to it. I've printed out my international label, and it looks just fine. So what we've covered so far, it would be printing out the stamps for letters, domestic and international shipping labels here. That's a pretty good coverage about printing postage. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other tools available to us in the Stamps.com online service. So if we go back to the top of the screen here and take a look at the blue navigation bar, the next item that's of interest here would be the View History section. And as you can see, if I hover my mouse over View History, I'm shown a number of related subcategories here. So let's start by clicking on this first subcategory of search, which is actually the same in this case as clicking on the View History link itself. So in this search screen, I'm able to search through my entire history of printed items by a wide range of criteria. First, in the upper left-hand corner, I have two different ways of specifying a range that I'd like to have displayed. We can either use this drop-down menu, which is defaulting to showing me the last week, or we can go ahead and use these calendar buttons over to the right to specify an exact start date and an exact end date. And then after specifying a time period, you're able to search for specific information by using the search bar over here on the right. What you can do is enter in any search term that you like and just click on the Go button to go ahead and search for that item. We're also able to narrow this search down by clicking on this magnifying glass icon here. And this allows us to specify what we're searching for, be that a cost code or a mail class or a recipient address. So you have a lot of powerful tools available to you when it comes to searching through your own print history to find a specific item. Now, having covered search here, let's go ahead and take a look at another very important item under View History, the Refund section. If I click on that refund link, that brings open the Print Refund screen, which, as you can see, is very similar in appearance to the search screen for our print history. Now, from this screen, I'm able to request any refunds for misprinted or unused postage here. I'm able to refund anything I'm able to print out. So domestic or international mailings, NetStamps, or shipping labels, all are able to be refunded from this screen. There are, however, two different types of refunds. We have electronic refunds, or e-refunds. Those are, of course, handled electronically and have to be used when you're refunding any postage that has a tracking number associated with it, so most commonly shipping labels. Electronic refunds do need to be submitted within 10 days of the printout date. Mail-in refunds are the other type of refund, and those require, unfortunately, that the misprinted postage be mailed into the USPS. And the reason why we have mail-in refunds is to cover postage that does not have a tracking number, so most commonly NetStamps in this case. Because the U.S. cannot monitor that postage electronically, we use the mail-in refund in order to prove to the USPS that there was a misprint. Now, the upside to mail-in refunds is that you have a 30-day window of opportunity to get those submitted after the print date. So first, let's go ahead and walk through submitting an electronic refund for that international label that I just printed out. That turns out the friend I was sending that gift to, his birthday isn't until next month. So what we can do is go ahead and select that label by clicking on this checked box here over on the left. And as I do that, we can see that this refund button above lights up. So having selected my label here, I'll go ahead and click on that refund button now. And on this next screen, I'm being shown a summary of my selections. If I'd selected multiple items on the first screen, which you can do, you'd be shown a summary of those here, as well as the combined total of those items. In this case, all I need to do on this screen is click on this checkbox in the lower left-hand corner, certifying that the above postage was never used, similar to the certification I issued for the reprint we did earlier. Having checked that box, I'll just go ahead and click on the Submit button here. And that's literally all there is to it. My electronic refund request has been submitted, and I can just go ahead and click on the Done button. And that will take me back to the refund screen. And we can see here that I'm no longer able to select a refund for that international item. Stamps.com also does a good job of making sure that you aren't able to accidentally request a duplicate refund, so you don't have to worry about getting in trouble with the USPS. So having covered an electronic refund, let's go ahead and cover submitting a mail-in refund, which is a little bit different. So for that demonstration, I'll go ahead and choose that first group I printed out of those 3 stamps here. Now before I actually request the refund, what I want to do is go ahead and click on this little info box here, that I under the info column. And clicking on it brings open the transaction details screen, which we can print out just by clicking on this print button here. And this screen is effectively, it's like a receipt of the actual print job itself here. So it helps certify to the USPS that you were charged in instances where, for example, nothing ever printed out onto your labels or you don't have other physical evidence. So having printed that out now, I'm going to go ahead and click on this refund button at the top. And here we can see that I'm being asked to itemize specifically which stamps I'm refunding here. In this case, and usually, you just go ahead and click on this Check All link at the bottom to have it select all of the net stamps for that sheet. But in instances where, for example, half of the sheet printed out just fine and you're only needing to refund the other half, you'd be able to itemize your selection on this screen here. So we can just go ahead and click on the Continue button now. And again, just as with the electronic refund, I'm being shown a summary of all the items I'd selected here. And again, you're also able to make multiple selections. So I'll just go ahead and click on that same certification box here and then click on Submit. And the one last difference here is that after I do that, the misprint form is brought up on screen. Now, this is a specific USPS form. Stamps.com does a very good job of automatically filling out all the relevant information here, as we can see. The only thing that you'll really need to do with this form, aside from print it out, is you'll have to sign here at the bottom of Part 1 in the middle. And then after you sign there, the address that you'd want to mail these items to is here in the lower left-hand corner under PC Postage Provider. And we can print this page out in this case by clicking on this link here up at the top. So after having printed that form out, I can just go ahead and click Done to go back to the refund screen. And so then all we'll need to do with that form is, again, sign our name on it, and then send it along with the transaction details receipt that we printed out first by clicking on that info box. And then finally, we'll want to include the actual label sheet that you were intending to print onto here. And with those 3 items, that's all you need to go ahead and send into the USPS to satisfy their requirements for a mail-in refund request. And again, mail-in refund requests are only needed in cases where we do not have an electronic tracking number associated with the item. Also, on this refund screen here, it's worth noting that we actually have 2 different tabs. What we've been working with so far is the applicable transactions tab from which we would request a refund. But there's also the refund history tab over on the right here, and this would show us a history of any refunds that we had requested, as well as showing you the status available for those as well. So let's go ahead and leave the view history section for a moment, and I'd like to jump over to these links up at the top and talk about the user preferences link here in the upper right-hand corner. I'll just go ahead and click on that link now. And this brings us to the preferences screen, which has several options available to us here, but there are just a few that I want to cover in depth. Now first, if we look in the middle of the screen here, there's the Reset Fields option, which has that blue select button like we had for additional options. And by clicking on that here, this will bring up the Reset Fields screen, which lists what information you'd like to have Stamps.com reset after each printout. So by default, Stamps.com will have everything enabled such that each time you print out postage, you'll be presented with a new blank form on the print postage screen. But what if, for example, I were sending out, say, 100 packages? They're all the same item being sent by the same mail class. The only difference was that they're going to different addresses. I'd drive myself crazy having to re-enter all that information in 100 times. So I'd want to go to this User Preferences screen and then click on the Select button to bring up this Reset Field screen. And I'd want to uncheck everything except for the Mail to address. And by making that change here, after I enter in my first slew of information for my first label and print that out, Stamps.com will remember all the settings I made. The only thing it's going to erase is the delivery address there. And then I can just click on OK here to save that change. So those field resetting options, very, very good to keep in mind if you're mailing several items in a particular day, as they can be a huge, huge time saver. That said, another important item here is under the label customization section. The first option here is an option to hide postage. When this is turned on, which we can do just by clicking on this checkbox, rather than printing out the exact dollar amount of the postage on a particular label, your shipping labels will just read postage paid instead. As you could imagine, this is an option that is especially popular for folks like eBay sellers, but it's really useful for anyone who collects fees for shipping and handling prior to actually mailing out an item, as it's a great way to avoid petty disputes over small differences in cost. And then finally, below the hide postage option, we also have the option to print out a receipt and instructions. When this is turned on, anytime you print out a shipping label, the other half of the page is going to include a receipt and the mailing instructions for the package as well. I should note that any changes I make on this preferences screen, I'll have to click on the blue Save button here in the lower left-hand corner in order to actually have those changes take effect. We'll just go ahead and leave everything as is. So going back to the blue navigation bar here up at the top, I'd like to go ahead and skip ahead to the Manage Account section, as it's fairly similar to the preferences screen we're on now. So let's go ahead and click on this Manage Account button here. Now this section contains many options that you won't find under User Preferences. Here you can, among other things, change your password or contact information, set up cost codes that you'd associate with your mailings, or view your store order history. You can access any section here just by clicking on its relevant link. Of special note here would be the payment method section here in the lower right-hand corner. You could change any of your payment methods associated with your account just by clicking on this change link here. And then you'd be able to add, edit, or remove any of your payment information. Now, some of the other sections available to us are a little bit beyond the scope of this webinar, but I would like to briefly touch on them. So if we jump back to the View History section here, let's go ahead and click on this third subcategory, USPS Pickup. So we can use the USPS Pickup screen to schedule a free USPS pickup for our packages. This screen would show you a list of any packages eligible for pickup, those being packages that have a mailing date that is either today or any days in the future. And then you can just place a check mark next to any items you'd like to have picked up, and then click on the Schedule Pickup button, which will walk you through the very quick process of getting that scheduled. Of note here is this notice at the top that lets you know that to qualify, at least one of your packages that you're having picked up must be of the priority or express mail class. So long as only one package is either priority or express mail, you can have any other number of packages picked up along with it. So for example, if I had one priority mail package and 99 first-class mail packages, I could schedule all 100 to be picked up for free. And now if we go back to the View History subcategories, right below the USPS pickup, we have the Scan Form section. Now these are also known as single scan forms. And then here what you can do is select any number of shipping labels with tracking barcodes, and then print out a scan form, which would be just one shared barcode that is associated with all of those. Then when the USPS comes to pick up your packages, they would only need to scan the scan form rather than each individual package, and then all of the packages have their tracking information simultaneously updated to reflect the pickup just off of that scan form. So it's a huge time saver both for you and the USPS. Finally, under View History, there's the File Claim section at the bottom. This screen would list all packages that had Stamps.com insurance specifically included on them. And then claims would be filed just by selecting the relevant item, just like we would on any of the other View History screens, and then clicking on the File Claim button here. Now if we go back to the blue navigation bar at the top, the other thing I'd like to talk about here would be the Reports section in the middle. Now the Reports section is fairly complex. Really, we could almost do a whole webinar devoted just to it. But just to give you a brief overview, this report section would be used to generate accounting reports for all expenses or purchases related to Stamps.com. Again, it is unfortunately a bit beyond the scope of this webinar, but I would strongly encourage you to go ahead and take a look at this section on your own, as it does give you a number of diverse options for taking account of your expenditures with Stamps.com. Finally, if we look in the very right-hand side of this navigation bar at the top, we have the Buy Supplies link. And this would be where you can go to order any supplies from Stamps.com here. So clicking on that link, you'd be able to purchase any labels or printing supplies, or even we offer a few printers on here as well. Of special note here, I'd like to bring your attention to the free USPS supplies link right here. This would be where you're able to order any of the free supplies provided from the post office branches. And again, they're completely free on our online store, and we do not even charge for the cost of shipping these items. These are a great way to help ensure that you never actually have to go to the post office again. So that will conclude this portion of the webinar. So this broadcast will end, but I am going to take some time now to answer any questions you might have for me. Again, I'll try to address all of your questions, but time is limited. I do apologize if I do not get to all of them, but I would encourage you to contact our customer care department. Again, all of our support is free of charge, and I'll just go ahead and leave the screen up here with that customer care contact link here again in the lower right-hand corner. Thank you all very much for attending.